He'd never find her. She'd hidden herself too carefully for him to pick up her trail. But she still had to pause outside the office door, waiting for her pulse to slow before she knocked. "Come in." Her guardian sounded distracted. He was probably lost in a case study or a patient file, struggling to untie the dark knots in the minds of those he had pledged to help. Gretchen hoped that someday she could be half as accomplished a psychoanalyst as him. "Hello, Dr. Whitestone," Gretchen said, stepping into his office and squinting in the sudden muted light. A single green-shaded lamp burned, leaving most of the room in shadow. The doctor sat at his desk, tidying a stack of manila folders. "I've just gotten back from town. The study session went well," she added, knowing he would ask, although it still seemed strange to have a parent who inquired about her schooling. These conversations between the two of them had become a daily habit. She would stop by his office after school, and they would chat for a few minutes before walking home together, leaving her bicycle at the clinic for her to pick up on her way to school the next morning. They rarely talked about anything but school or the clinic, but even so, it was nice to have someone's full attention, and to know that if she did want to discuss something else, he was willing to listen. "Now, Gretchen," he said gently, "we've been over this before. Please call me Alfred." Gretchen flushed. Even though she'd been a member of the Whitestone household for 17 months, she still sometimes forgot to call her guardian by his first name. Addressing an adult so informally, especially one she hadn't known since girlhood, went against everything she'd been taught by her parents. Most of her parents' rules were wrong, she reminded herself, and forced a smile. "Yes, Alfred." His gaze held hers for a moment longer, his expression serious. "I don't make the request lightly. You're my daughter, in every sense of the word that matters." Gretchen swallowed against the sudden tightness in her throat, thinking of her father. He had never said such things to her, but she had known he had loved her by the way he danced with her around the kitchen, or sat with her when she woke up from a nightmare. Loving Alfred wasn't being disloyal to Papa, she reminded herself for the 1000th time. It was finding a way to keep living, no matter what happened. "I know," she managed to say. Whitestone blinked several times and turned away, busying himself with the folders in a filing cabinet. "You said the study session went well?" "Yes, though the French exam would probably still be dreadful. Anyway, it's 6:30, and Julia must be frantic that the rolls have gone cold by now." "Poor Julia." Whitestone locked the cabinet and turned to Gretchen, smiling. Cold rolls were a long-running family joke. Alfred was frequently late to supper, and once had been so wrapped up in work that he'd forgotten about a lavish dinner party his wife was throwing, resulting in the infamous cold-as-rock rolls. "We'd best get home then," he added, ushering her out of the office. Together, they started down the hall. Although Gretchen tried not to see them, she couldn't help noticing the missing wall tiles, the scuff marks on the floor, the flickering bulbs in the electric light fixtures. Up here on the 3rd floor, far from the probing gazes of potential patients and their families, the clinic's meager finances showed themselves. As their footsteps echoed up and down the hall, Gretchen glanced at Alfred. As always, he was his comfortable, dapper self. A thatch of black hair above a square of a face, dark eyes behind gold-rimmed spectacles, and a blue suit that somehow managed to appear freshly pressed, although it had been worn all day. He looked just the same as he had when they'd met months ago at her mother's boarding house in Munich. Then he'd been a stranger on sabbatical, wishing to observe the psychological oddity of rising politician Adolf Hitler. He'd planned to write a profile on Hitler for a medical journal, one that would garner him enough professional acclaim that he'd be invited to serve on the staff of a prominent London hospital. But he'd never written it. In order for her to be safe, she had to remain anonymous, which meant the Whitestones had to as well. So Alfred had continued trudging